Cool. I'm down.
Terrific.
I dig that. Okay, so those two are good. We'll delete that. It was a long intro because we had the technical difficulties, everything. But this is just part of the process.
It sure is.
I kind of want to check it one more time, but I think we're going to be okay. Should we just roll with it, or should we check it again?
Okay, let's roll it.
Okay. All right. That's on. Cubase is recording. OBS recording. Camera's recording. Finally, we made it. It is a Monday. Welcome back. 307 Rex.
That's right.
I had to do a sultry. I haven't done one in a long time. I mentioned it in one of our last edits. I remember saying that and was like, oh, yeah,
good,
I'm going to try. Yeah, they are. They're nice. I'm Matt. That's Chris. If this is your first time joining us on the channel, welcome. Welcome to Wyoming. Welcome to two blue-collar dudes reacting to independent music and some inspirational speaking and maybe some glitter bomb explosions and, some Mentos 5-gallon volcanoes and some piano playing and just,
all sorts of shit.
You might stumble across something for everyone on our channel, so, welcome. How's it going, everybody? Yes. And for everyone that's a returning viewer, how's it going? Best audience in the world. Yes. There's like 170,000 or something like that of you guys every 28 days that aren't subscribing to our channel, and our analytics tells us that, and it's a very unfortunate statistic to see. So if you would please help us out, fight the battle, hit that subscribe button, we would greatly appreciate it.
Right.
What do we have on the screen, Chris? We're doing Jordan Peterson's most shocking revelation about our environment. So he's going to talk about environment shit.
I guess. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is environment like world, I talk about global warming and shit, or if this is like environment about the environment you live in.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Okay, maybe he's got ties to both. Maybe he's got a way of kind of.
I just saw it was
metaphorically making things
a
like
newer one, and I'm like, well, let's check it out.
Cool. So. Just doing I think our microphones are a good volume. You got
monitors
everything?
Good?
Yeah, monitors are off. Your headphones sound good. Yeah. Everything good for you? All right, let's get right into this, shall we?
We should be doing everything we can to lift the world's absolute poor out of their absolute poverty.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. This is all wrong.
So I'm assuming
one of the things that,
environment,
with regards to carbon dioxide output, one of the things that people are listening and watching might want to think about is, I've been attacked many times for being a climate change denier, let's say, and I don't really care for that accusation one way or another. But one of the things I know recently from my investigations is that one of the consequences of carbon dioxide overproduction over the last 15 years, because carbon dioxide levels have been going up, and some of that seems to be a consequence of anthropogenic activity, human industrial activity, let's say, is that paradoxically, and contrary to all predictions on the environmentalist side, the planet is now 15% greener than it was in the year 2000. And 15% that's a tremendous amount.
Yeah,
it is.
It's an area that's larger than the United States.
Dude, that is that's Niagara Falls, right?
I believe so,
Looks like it. I'm not going to say it has to be because I've never been there, so I don't actually know. But that's a great. I think that's what it is. That's what it looks like to me. It's a great view of it. I've never been. I would like to go because it's supposed to be insanely breathtaking. But I've always been fascinated by it. I've always been fascinated by waterfalls and big bodies of water and stuff. And this was definitely on the bucket list for sure. Yeah. It's a great photo of it, man. Great aerial photo.
So I've always wondered about that myself, right? Because I was taught that, plants, as they do their plant thing, they use photosynthesis obviously to absorb the energy that they need to produce oxygen, right? But typically they convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. So wouldn't a high carbon dioxide level, I understand too much carbon dioxide can choke it out,
right?
But
yeah,
you would think a higher carbon count would.
I'm no scientist. Is carbon dioxide heavier than oxygen? Is that why it is?
I don't have a fucking clue.
I don't know anything about that, and I'm probably getting too deep into it. But yeah, I don't know.
And they go, we need to stop all the carbon emissions. It's like, well, plants kind of use that. You know that, right?
It's interesting. I'd like to know. I'd like to read the articles that he's citing. When he says we're 15% greener than we were in 2000. I'd be interested to read that article. I'm not in dispute of it. I'm just would be interested. I didn't know that, and I think that's like he's saying 15% is when you're talking globally. 15% is massive.
Yeah,
that's
the size of the United States is what he said.
Yeah, that's
huge.
massive. That's so crazy. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Let's go.
That's a tremendous amount. It's an area that's larger than the United States.
Larger even.
And it isn't obvious to me that that's a bad thing. And it's more than that. The most remarkable greening has occurred in semi-arid areas. And so the deserts are supposed to expand as the globe warmed or the climate changed, because that was a fait accompli in terms of terminological transformation. And what's happened instead is that that plants have invaded the semi-arid areas to a large degree. And the reason for that is because plants have to breathe through pores. And if they open their pores to get more carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide levels are relatively low, let's say, they let water evaporate out of these pores. If there's more carbon dioxide, they can close their pores, and then it turns out that they can grow where it's drier. And that's driven
can store
not
more
only
water.
an expansion of greening everywhere there already were plants, but the proliferation of plants into areas that couldn't support them before. And so it's very hard for me to look at that, because that's a huge change, 15%, and not think, well, maybe more plants is a good thing. But there's an additional feature that's going along with that also has to be contended with. And I don't see people on the environmental front grappling with these issues in any manner that strikes me as credible. Not only has the total biomass of plants increased tremendously, 15%, but crop yields have gone up, because it turns out that carbon dioxide is a pretty damn good fertilizer. So instead of having less food because of climate change forced by carbon dioxide, we actually have more food, and we have more food with less fertilizer. And so I think you could make a case, and I know this is utterly heretical, and it might not even be true, that carbon dioxide output's a net good. And I also know, for example, that we have somewhere between 300 and 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere right now. And that's actually it's actually low by historical standards, quite low. And plants really have a hard time even living at 150. So that's the cutoff for plants to breathe. And so a carbon dioxide intensive world is actually a lot more friendly to plants. Now you could say, well, we're still risking catastrophe by changing the biosphere that rapidly, because a 15% increase in plant coverage is nothing trivial. And there may be elements of that are destabilizing in some ways I don't understand. But the prediction that we were going to produce an expansion of desert, for example, and a denuding of a transformation of semi-arid areas into desert, that all seems to be like completely wrong. That did not happen. The opposite happened. And so I don't know what to make of that fact, because as far as I can tell, that fact is incontrovertibly true. And so I don't see that there's a leg for the apocalyptic.
Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, the first one.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to, I believe it's Chernobyl, and they have the Ferris wheel.
Okay.
That's sitting there, boss. They have a mission, and I swear, like, this looks just like it. It
reminds me of Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead 2. I think one of the first missions in that game, or what levels or whatever it is, you go through an amusement park, and it's got this gloomy kind of post-apocalyptic kind of thing going on, and you're shooting zombies the whole time. It's a blast. It's scary and fun, and you get to play with your friends. It's awesome. If you've never played Left 4 Dead, I would recommend Left 4 Dead 2. It's like one of the best ones in my opinion, and it's kind of challenging and fun at the same time. It's great.
I've been seeing a lot of people play the new one on Twitch.
Is there a new one?
Oh, there's a couple. Yeah, I think they're on 5 or something.
That makes sense. Maybe more than that. I know Left 4 Dead 2 is like, it's old. It's maybe a couple decades old. I don't know, but yeah.
But yeah, so that's interesting. Like, they keep telling us all this is, don't drive a diesel. Everybody switch to electric cars, and then there still has to be. I feel like it was this way with COVID, right? Where they see they make all these predictions kind of based on whatever, okay? And then it comes out at the end of it that it's like, well, that wasn't exactly what happened, but they still tend to push it. And anybody else who had the finger to say, hey, remember 10 years ago when I told you that wasn't going to happen and I was right? Where are those guys at? Because I haven't heard shit.
Yeah.
So, like, it kind of brings to question what's, like, if we know that the planet is thriving off of the current emissions that we're putting out, and it's historically low, why are we in such a place where everybody just pushes and pushes and pushes for lower?
I am not at a place to have any sort of educated opinion on any of this because I don't do enough research on this kind of thing. I just know what I've seen depicted is that reservoirs are drying up and we're running out of water, and again, this is all headline news. So I'm not saying it's not true. I just how much of it is true and how much of it isn't. I don't read the articles. It's just what I see in passing when I'm going through things. Yeah. It's not like I avoid it on purpose. I just don't care enough. It's like next. But I don't know, man.
Because I mean, with the whole COVID thing, it made sense because there was a lot of money to be had.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of money to be had. But as far as this goes, I mean, I don't know. They're talking about basically cutting billion-dollar industries out of the market to try to reduce this, and who wins because of that? Like, that's kind of an interesting, and I'm saying this for like the person who knows better, right? Like, hey, we've seen 15% growth, but I don't want to talk about that because that goes against my global warming war. Yeah. Like, why? Because I get it. If you're not educated on the thing, you're not educated. Yeah. Like, I don't.
And that's where I'm like on the sidelines just kind of watching. Like, I don't know really what's going on here, but I'm having a good time watching, I don't know. I don't want to ruffle any feathers with, I feel like someone out there has a strong opinion about this stuff, and it's just not my ballpark. So I'm not
respectfully. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm interested to know where you guys stand. Who's got some information on this? Maybe you guys can post some articles up that can kind of bring me up to speed or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this is one of those subjects where immediately it starts this blue versus red, black versus white kind of thing.
And that's the thing. It shouldn't.
It shouldn't, but it does. It does. And so I'm just precursoring to everybody. I'm in the same boat. I'm not taking a side. I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm just listening, and it's very informative and sounds good. So
I mean the one thing I can say about Jordan is like he does do his research, and when he posts his research papers, which I've read a couple of them, I can't make it all the way through.
I was gonna say
because I just.
He's not an amateur. It's not like he's some amateur out here.
I'm not smart enough, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, oh my God, dude, it's like reading the ingredients on a Skittles package.
Like I'm
like,
the biggest words.
I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? And then I have to look it up, and I'm only 2 sentences in, So
take an hour to get through page 1.
But the thing is he lists all of his sources, and then you go to those sources and check them out, and they're like legit, hey, we've spent, like 15 years studying this one thing.
I believe that he's very good about tracing his sources, and I believe that he's good about backing himself up with that stuff. I'm just interested to know where he's pulling the information from, because I'd like to read those articles myself. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Let's keep going here. Back 5, ready to go.
And so I don't see that there's a leg for the apocalyptic environmentalists to stand on, especially given that their policies have been counterproductive and they're driving people into poverty. One hypothesis is, the planet has a limited carrying capacity, and it's a zero-sum game, and we're Malthusian, rats, and overpopulating the place, and that what we need to do in consequence is limit growth and perhaps move towards a much less populated planet. That last one is a very frightening proposition because, as you said,
life-based ethics.
Well, who gets to go? That's the real question, and exactly how.
And who are the monsters who make the decision?
Well, exactly that. But I also think that model, it's certainly not the only model that you can derive from the data, let's say, because one of the things I learned when I was deeply investigating the relationship between economic growth and long-term environmental viability, let's say, sustainability, something like that, was that, strangely enough, and perhaps not so, if you can lift people out of absolute poverty and get them up to something approximating $5,000 a year in terms of average, say, contribution to GDP, then they stop adopting a short-term view and they start to adopt a long-term view. because they have the luxury of being able to think beyond the moment. And I suppose partly why we want security, which is what wealth can offer, at least to some degree, is so that we're not bound by the absolute emergencies of the moment. If you get people up to about $5,000 per year in terms of their ability to generate income, then they start to be concerned about the environment. But the environmental concerns start to be expressed in a way that's, I would say, truly sustainable, because you could imagine that we could take a top-down approach to environmental planning, but top-down solutions have the problem of, first of all, being unitary, and second of all, so they can go catastrophically wrong if they're wrong. They're also difficult to impose. But if you make enough people, if you free enough people from absolute poverty, they start to be concerned about environmental maintenance locally. And so what you get is a distributed attempt across the world of people to improve the quality of their local environment. So that's maybe hundreds of millions of people that have a longer term viewpoint instead of a few centralist utopians trying to govern the whole planet. And that's a much more stable solution. So we should
I like that.
So, you know what? There's 20 seconds left. I can save it.
be doing everything we can to lift the world's absolute poor out of their absolute poverty. And we do that, so then we can say, well, how do we do that? And one of the ways we do that is by moving towards the provision of free and ample energy. That's a crucial issue.
That's how we fed 5 billion extra people
Right,
over the last 45 years.
And so that means we have to give some serious consideration to intelligent use of fossil fuels, which we're doing anyways.
Well, okay, I need to hear more of that. I need to hear more of that, man. Like he was just getting into kind of what I was wondering about is like, how do you, I get the vision and I understand the picture, but how do you start to do that? Like, how do you move an entire populace out of a certain,
out of poverty,
out of a sect
and $5,000 a year is not a lot.
Oh, dude, like, yeah, I watch Trailer Park Boys, you know, the series Trailer Park Boys, and they joke all the time about making $5,000 and then basically being retired. Well, I mean, the whole show is whole show is kind of, you know, but they joke all the time about $5,000, dude. We're retired. That's it. Take the deal. We're good. Yeah. And it's supposed to be a big joke because it's like basically impossible. You know what I mean? So $5,000 a year is
slim living.
I mean, how do you even? It's like just meals, and like not good meals. It's like just baseline food for the year. It's $5,000. Like beans and rice, baby. And tortillas and beans
I mean,
and rice.
I get it in some other countries. I mean, I'm sure Africa, I mean, shit's just got to be dirt cheap.
Probably,
Has to be.
It's cheaper anyways. It's got to be cheaper. I guess you're right, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that's interesting how he lays out. He's like, look, because he's talked about several times before that people who have jobs or people who participate in some type of activity where they are compensated for it feel a sense of accomplishment and belonging and responsibility. And some of these people in these third world countries don't have that. Basically, their whole day is, how do I make it to tomorrow? Like, what am I going to eat today? Where am I going to find water? Like, they don't have the number one, like the responsibility. Their only responsibility right now is keeping them alive to the next day.
Staying alive.
It's a survival mode only. And I think the point that he's getting at is if we open up the free market a little bit more and give more production jobs and more this, that, and the other, kind of basically open up more jobs to get these people in there making money. Well, now they're not worried about if they're going to eat. They'll be like, man, dude, like,
see, I was wondering about
my house is kind of a shithole. Like, I should kind of clean this up and spruce it up. And
before you know it, it's like I got a little extra cash. I can clean this thing up or do something. Yeah.
Like, I don't have to worry about food. I'm just going to buy it on the way home. And
that was another question I was having. I was like, so how is he correlating that people who make $5,000 average a year or whatever are more responsible but it makes sense when you put it in that context, you know. How do you get? how do you get those people to do that? Well, you create more jobs in the energy sector.
Yeah.
And then in turn, you're doing good for the planet and providing jobs at the same time.
Yeah. And then, like, a lot of those, in the videos, they show these third world countries just mounds of trash everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they don't care about the trash that's there. Their concern is surviving in the next day.
Yeah.
And if that's taken care of, if that basic need is no longer, like, on the forefront of their mind, then they kind of start to look at the place around them and take responsibility for that. And, like,
because it provides room in your psyche essentially to be like, okay, I don't constantly have to think about survival. I know I'm good. I know I have a meal coming. So, like, now you can focus on other things.
Yeah.
That makes sense, man. It's a really interesting perspective, honestly. But it's logical.
Yeah.
Again, every time Jordan Peterson's on the screen, I come out going, well, I mean, super logical.
And that's the big thing. He's talking about a bottom up procedure, whereas every environmentalist ever that I've ever heard wants a top down. Like, well, these billion-dollar corporations need to make a change. The government needs to make a change. The whatever, and it's like
those corporations and governments are probably never going to make changes.
Let's just say that you're successful and get them to change. That's less than 1% of the world.
Yeah, that's still,
but, like Jordan was saying, 500 million people now have jobs, and they start to care about
the environment around them.
Now I got this shit around me. Well, maybe that's 5%.
Shit, I got enough money. I can fucking shower myself, buy some nice clothes. Now I look good, but everything around me looks like shit. So then we start moving out towards that, and it's all based around. I don't have to worry about trying to scour or source a meal tonight. I know that I'm gonna eat.
And that's what he's getting at. He's like, if you can get from the bottom up to help with the cleaning of the planet, then that less than 1% corporation difference that corporation made, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. If we can get these people to where they need to be, maybe that's 5% better than what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. Which,
really
again, when you're speaking in global terms, 5% is a massive number.
It is.
1% is a pretty big number.
Yeah.
But, like percentages, you guys get it.
It's wild, man. Wild.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff to think about. I've literally would have never made that relationship before. I would have never connected those two things. Like, hey, if people are making money, they care more about the things around them. Like, but then if you think about it, think about yourself. It's like, man, when you're at a low point, like you get fired from your job, your girlfriend leaves you, you're late on your rent, whatever, and you don't have the money to come up with it. At a certain point, you're just like, who fucking cares? Yeah. I've been there, actually, so I can understand that, yeah.
And I get guilty of that, like, when my depression hits in real bad, right?
Yeah.
My room is a fucking wreck because I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I just fucking whatever. But, like, when I have that sense of responsibility and I'm where I'm supposed to be, everything's where it's, So,
for sure. Yeah, makes total sense. Makes sense. Jordan Peterson, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, if you guys like this video as much as we did, be sure to leave a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, click the bell, become part of the notification gang. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Ow.
Yeah. Reactions.